Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Judicial and Legal Service Act, Chapter 601, the Children Act, Chapter 4601, the Patents Act, Chapter 82, Number 76, and the Legal Profession Act, Chapter 90, Number 3, with respect to the administration of the Ministry of the Legal Affairs and for related matters, be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, the need for these amendments and changes to the structure of the Civil Law Department culminated in the drafting of the Miscellaneous Provisions Judicial and Legal Services Bill 2024, which, if you'll permit me, I'll refer to the Miscellaneous Provisions Bill, primarily came to the fore from circumstances surrounding the now infamous court case, Civil Action 2020 of 01243 Sherwin Peters and others against the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, the claim. A brief history of this matter is necessary in order to understand why the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago has considered these amendments to the above referenced acts both crucial and essential to the effective running of the Civil Law Department of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. While it is to be noted that investigations revealed that the relevant proceedings in that case were not served at the correct office, the fact that the full activity resulting in a default judgment against the state, which the state was ordered to pay in excess of the sum of $20 million, could go undetected by the state's Civil Law Department underscored the need to look closely at the systems and processes used by the state in its civil law portfolio. After a much justified public outcry following the decision of the High Court on the default judgment awarding $20 million against the state, I decided to appoint an independent investigative team on the 2nd of February, consisting of retired Mr. Justice Stanley John and a retired head of the Special Branch of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to do the following. One, to inquire into the facts and circumstances relating to CV 2020-01243 Sherwin Peters against the Attorney General, commencing from the 22nd of June 2020, when service of the claim form and statement of case were effected, including the decision of the High Court, dated 30th January 2023, culminating in the handover of that file to the Acting Solicitor General on the 6th of February 2023. To inquire into and establish the facts and circumstances regarding the role or roles played by any minister, member of the Civil Law Department, or any other person employed at the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs in the management and conduct of that case. To inquire into and establish whether there was any dereliction of duty, violation of any law, conflict of interest and/or breach of trust on the part of any minister, member of the Civil Law Department, or any other person employed at the Office of the Attorney General in the management and conduct of that case. To inquire into and examine the current procedures at the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs and the Civil Law Department relative to the management and conduct of civil litigation generally involving the state. To make recommendations, Madam President, to improve the management and conduct of civil proceedings taken by and against the state at the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs and the Civil Law Department, and to have recourse to such information technology expertise as necessary. To report in writing to the Judicial and Legal Service Commission any facts, circumstances, or evidence which, in the opinion of the investigative team, may give rise to show or establish the commission of any disciplinary offense by any officer or officers in the Judicial and Legal Service relating to the management and conduct of that case. To report in writing to the Director of Public Prosecutions any facts, circumstances, or evidence which, in the opinion of the investigative team, may give rise to, show, or establish the commission of any criminal or fraudulent act contrary to the laws of Trinidad and Tobago relating to the management and conduct of that case. To make such other and incidental inquiries which concern and relate to subject matter of inquiry as the investigative team may deem necessary to give effect to any findings made by that investigative team and/or remedy and/or prevent any act or conduct as may be found by the investigative team, and on the need, if any, for the enactment, amendment, or repeal of any laws of Trinidad and Tobago relating to civil proceedings by and against the state. And lastly, terms of reference, to issue a report with recommendations to the Attorney General within 60 days of the establishment of this investigation on the 5th of February 2023, with reference to all of the above terms of inquiries, and that a full and final report with recommendations within 6 months of the 5th of February with reference to those terms of inquiry. Madam Speaker, the preliminary report was submitted by the investigative team to my ministry on the 31st of March 2023, and the full and final report was submitted to me on 22nd of June 2023. Permit me to record the nation's deepest gratitude to the members of that investigative team for their invaluable and expeditious work. For brevity only, this work in my references, this work is captured by references to the investigative team and their final report as the John Report. Madam Speaker, during the course of their investigations, the investigative team and that investigation ran over a considerable period of time, as what I've just read outlines. The investigative team met with heads of departments in the Civil Law Department, led at the time by Ms. Carleen Senart, Solicitor General Acton, the Permanent Secretary for the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs, the Director of Information, Communications and Technology at the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs, among others. In the submission of their full and final report, the team carefully examined and addressed the roles and functions of both the Chief State Solicitor and the Solicitor General, identified certain shortcomings, and made several recommendations with respect to improving the management and conduct of civil proceedings taken by and against the state at the Ministry of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs. During the course of that investigation, the team carefully scrutinized the procedure of the Civil Law Department as it relates to the management and conduct of civil proceedings taken by and against the state. They examined how court documents are handled once served on AGLA, AGLA being the acronym for the Office of Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs, where these documents are logged and by whom, where these documents are placed after they are served on AGLA, and most importantly, to whom are cases assigned for the conduct of each individual matter. The current information technology, IT infrastructure at AGLA was also assessed in terms of how much it is used by officers attached to AGLA, and how best information communications technology could be used in the future by the Civil Law Department to improve their processes and efficiency, and to ensure that the similar circumstances of a file going missing and a $20 million judgment being awarded against the state did not reoccur. In making their recommendations, Madam Speaker, as part of their mandate, the investigative team came upon reports from 2006 and 2008 of a committee comprising of 2 former Solicitors General who subsequently went on to become High Court judges and Court of Appeal judges, as well as a senior professional in organizational management, a senior professional in human resource management, a senior professional in human resource management, the then Permanent Secretary to the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs, and chaired by then Court Executive Administrator of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Master Christian Morris Alleyne. This committee in 2006 and 2008 held extensive and exhaustive consultations with members of the various departments of the Ministry of Legal Affairs and produced extensive reports entitled Reports of the Committee to Enhance the Delivery of Legal Services to the People of Trinidad and Tobago. Master Morris Alleyne was asked by the investigative team which I appointed to review the 2006 and 2008 reports of the committee which I have just referenced, with a view to ascertaining whether the situation had changed significantly. As part of her task under the leadership of Mr. Justice Stanley John, Master Alleyne met with senior officers of the Solicitor General's Department, senior officers of the Chief State Solicitor's Department, the Director and staff of the Information and Communication Technology Department, the Permanent Secretary for AGLA, and the Registrar General of the Registrar General's Department, all with a view to and intention of understanding their concerns about the state of the Civil Law Department and ascertaining whether there had been any changes in the service they deliver, their modes of delivery, their resources and their tools, and most importantly, their processes. She reported to the investigative team, Madam Speaker, after all the information was collected and their investigations were completed, the investigative team determined that the structure of the Civil Law Department did not afford ample opportunity or fertile ground to enable the types of processes and procedure changes required to become an efficient and well-organized civil law chambers. Permit me, Madam Speaker, to quote from Mr. Justice John's report, who identified poor systems and weak processes, a lack of accountability, etc. This is part of the report. Quote, "It has become evident that there are and have been weak processes which have resulted in unfortunate outcomes. It was necessary to understand where the weak processes came from. Why were they allowed to remain? Who was studying them? Was there a culture of continuous improvement? More often than not, processes are an outcome of systems and organizational structure, and it continues to be evident, it continues to be evident that the existing structure lends itself to less than sound systems, limited accountability, process failure, and limited engagement. Continuous review, which should be one of the hallmarks of modern organizations, is not encouraged by the organizational structure. The legal heads and their senior legal staff saw the processes as the responsibility of some amorphous them, who had somehow the power, and the legal head simply had to take it or complain, but never that they should be taking the lead or be involved in the process design or redesign. Data entry was seen as something done by IT, not as the responsibility of each computer of each person as the computer replaces the pen. Let me repeat that. Data entry was seen as something done by IT, not as the responsibility of each person as the computer replaces the pen. It is for this reason that we approach these recommendations by first discussing the organization. The design of the organization must be such that the head of chambers sees themselves as accountable for not just the case that they are handling, but the systems, the processes, the efficiency, the throughput, the standard, and in general, the full organization, end of quote. The investigative team officially recommended that 1, there be a civil law chambers, which should be a merger of what is now the Solicitor General's Department and the Office of the Chief State Solicitor, formerly called the Civil Law Department, in keeping with the Judicial and Legal Service Act, Chapter 601. 2, the administration of the civil law chambers be bolstered by the introduction of chambers management within the civil law chambers, and that the chambers management be headed by a competent chambers manager. 3, the Office of the Registrar General and the Intellectual Property Office be separated from the civil law chambers and formed as offices on their own. This was seen as necessary, as the work of the Office of the Registrar General is quite different from that of the rest of the Civil Law Department. 4, the positions of senior children's attorney and children's attorneys be formally created and filled under the provisions of Section 88 of the Children's Act, Chapter 4601. Madam Speaker, permit me at this juncture to record for this Honorable House my retaining of Mr. Justice Ralston Nelson, retired, who has successfully led a team of attorneys before the High Court and succeeded in having the $20 million judgment against the state set aside. Not unexpectedly, that decision is under appeal by a team of attorneys led by Anand Ramlogan. On the 19th of October 2023, Cabinet accepted the Justice Stanley John report and authorized me to come back with recommendations, which I did. On the 5th of April 2024, Madam Speaker, I retained retired Court Executive Administrator, Master Morris Alleyne, as my consultant to implement the recommendations of the Justice Stanley John report. For the record, Madam Speaker, it is important that I ask this House to acknowledge that prior to her retirement in 2023 as Court Executive Administrator, Master Morris Alleyne served successfully in that capacity as Court Executive Administrator under the late Right Honorable Mr. Justice Michael de Labastide, KC, as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Trinidad and Tobago, as President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, and after his retirement, she returned to the Supreme Court of Trinidad and Tobago in that capacity under Chief Justice Archie, ORTT. Need I say more as to the suitability and competence of retired Master Morris Alleyne, retired Court Executive Administrator Master Morris Alleyne, as the consultant retained by me to implement the John report. Madam Speaker, following on her retainer, Master Morris Alleyne has held a series of meetings and consultations with the staff of the two departments, Solicitor General and Chief Solicitor, as well as with the Registrar General and the Controller of the Intellectual Property Office on the reform process, the first step of which is represented by this bill. Permit me then, Madam Speaker, to turn to the bill in some detail. The JLSC Act, the Judicial and Legal Service Commission Act, provides for the creation of a civil law department in the Ministry of Legal Affairs under Section 12, which states, the Ministry of Legal Affairs shall comprise of the departments of civil law, of criminal law, of legislative drafting, and of accounting, which shall be headed respectively by the Solicitor General, the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Chief Parliamentary Counsel, and a public officer to be designated Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Legal Affairs. Subsection 2, the Civil Law Department shall include the departments of the Chief State Solicitor and the Registrar General. This bill, Madam Speaker, seeks to reorganize and restructure the Civil Law Department of the Ministry of Legal Affairs by doing the following. 1. Fusing the Department of the Chief State Solicitor and the Solicitor General's Department into one civil law department with provision for children's attorneys in keeping with the Children's Act and for effective chambers management to provide for improved opportunities for sound, strategic, and operational management of the Civil Law Department. 2. Creating the Registrar General's Department as a separate department in the Ministry of Legal Affairs with the Registrar General as a Chief Legal Officer. 3. Making provision for persons in the Intellectual Property Office to be engaged on contract to perform their specialized functions in such a way as to provide for some element of contractual stability. The legislative changes, Madam Speaker, required for the purpose of fusing the departments of the Solicitor General and the Chief State Solicitor are removing the references to the Department of the Chief State Solicitor as a distinct sub-department of the Department of Civil Law, Clause 5D2 of the bill. Distinguishing between the responsibility of the Department of Civil Law and specific statutory civil law functions and responsibilities, Clause 5D2 of the bill as well. Removing the distinction between offices under the Chief State Solicitor as opposed to the Solicitor General by changing the names only, and I emphasize that, by changing the names only of these offices to reflect our fused profession. Section 12.1 of the Judicial and Legal Service Act, Chapter 601, provides for 3 main legal departments within the Ministry of Legal Affairs. These are 1, the Department of Civil Law, 2, the Department of Criminal Law, and 3, the Department of the Chief Parliamentary Counsel. With respect to the Department of Civil Law, Section 12.1 of the Act provides that the Solicitor General is the head of the department. Section 12.2 names the Department of the Chief State Solicitor and the Registrar General Department as sub-departments of the Civil Law Department. Section 12 of the Judicial and Legal Service Act does not detail the functions of the departments. With respect to the Department of Criminal Law and the Department of Legislative Drafting, the responsibilities are somewhat self-explanatory, and those are not affected. However, given the ambit of civil law, some elucidation of the civil law matters that are responsibility of the Department of Civil Law is useful. Madam Speaker, the bill replaces Section 12(2) with a new subsection that does not provide for a separate sub-department for the Chief State Solicitor. Instead, beg your pardon, the proposed Section 12(2) provides for the function of the Department of Civil Law. The proposed Section 12(2) broadly describes the role of the Department of Civil Law to include, among other things, the duties that are currently exercisable by the Solicitor General and the Chief State Solicitor. Any function conferred by legislation to either the Solicitor General or the Chief State Solicitor will be the responsibility of the Civil Law Department, whether or not the particular legislation is amended to refer to the department. The Department of Civil Law is the umbrella under which those two offices will function. Additionally, the proposed provision recognizes that, one, many of the roles and functions of the Department of Civil Law are not currently and will not be expressly assigned in legislation, but have traditionally been performed by the holders of the Office of Solicitor General or Chief State Solicitor. And secondly, the Attorney General, being charged by Section 76 of the Constitution with responsibility for the administration of legal affairs in Trinidad and Tobago and legal proceedings for and against the state, may assign duties to the Department of Civil Law. Section 85 of the Constitution also refers. The bill, Madam Speaker, also expressly refers to Part 1 of the first schedule to the Judicial and Legal Service Act that sets out the legal offices of the Department of Civil Law. These offices include the current offices of the Solicitor General's Department, the Chief State Solicitor's Sub-Department, most of which have been renamed, and I emphasize that, renamed only, and the offices required under the Children Act, that is to say, children's attorneys and senior children's attorney. Madam Speaker, the Solicitor General is the head of the Department of Civil Law Department and also performs other statutory functions that are specific to the holder of the Office of Solicitor General. The two roles are performed by the same office holder but are different. Similarly, some legislation specifies certain functions to be performed by the Chief State Solicitor. Those roles are specific to the office holder, regardless of whether or not that office holder is also the head of a department or a sub-department. The Chief State Solicitor, by the new name under this bill, Chief State Attorney, when no longer the head of a sub-department, will continue to assign or delegate functions that are statutorily assigned to the Chief State Solicitor to other offices, as Sections 52 and 53 of the Interpretation Act already provides that any statutory function conferred on any public officer may be delegated to any other officer within the same ministry. It is not necessary for the officer with the statutory assigned role to be head of a department or sub-department for other officers within the department to exercise functions related to that protections for the office holders as such of various senior public offices, responsible including the chief legal officer, that is to say the Attorney General, may, without limiting the authority of the Chief State Solicitor, rename the Chief State Attorney, authorize other officers within the Department of Civil Law to exercise Chief State Solicitor's statutory functions. There are also functions in relation to civil law matters, Madam Speaker, that are performed by officers, departments, ministries, or bodies other than the Department of Civil Law, such as the Board of Inland Revenue, Customs and Excise, the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Energy. It is not practical to specifically identify and ascribe responsibilities for every civil law matter to a particular department, ministry, or officer. A more practical approach is to provide that the general responsibility of the Department of Civil Law for civil proceedings and other civil law matters does not negate the specific roles and functions assigned by statute to other officers or bodies. For the avoidance of doubt, the insertion of a new Section 12(2)(a) clarifies the scope of the Department of Civil Law, provides that specific civil law functions assigned by legislation will continue to be exercised by the entity or office holders specified in legislation. The purpose of the proposed subsection 2A is twofold. One, it seeks to clarify, Madam Speaker, that while there will be one Department of Civil Law, if any law specifically assigns a duty or function to the Solicitor General or other Chief State Solicitor, that duty or function remains that of the officer. The officer simply operates within the General Department of Civil Law as opposed to a distinct sub-department. Two, it also recognizes that some functions may come within the broad scope of a civil law matter, may have been assigned to some other public functionary office or body. In such a case, that office, holder, or body will be responsible for the function specifically assigned. Dealing with state attorneys, Madam Speaker, with the fusion of the legal profession by the Legal Profession Act, barristers and solicitors are now and have been for many years now attorneys at law. The maintenance of distinct offices of state solicitor versus state counsel and similar distinctions are unnecessary anachronisms. It has simply never been addressed, and we are addressing that anachronistic redundancy now, among other things, by this bill. We are bringing the department into the reality of the Legal Profession Act, under which attorneys have functioned now for 40 years. Senior Children's Attorney and Children's Attorney. Section 82 of the Children's Attorney Act, the Children's Act, I beg your pardon, Chapter 4601, mandates that the Children's Attorney offices be an office within the Department of the Civil Law Department, i.e., be a legal office under Part 1 of the first schedule of the Judicial and Legal Service Act. The proposed replacement of Part 1 of the first schedule to the Judicial and Legal Service Act proposes that Part 1 of the first schedule be repealed and substituted to reflect the following changes. A, the office of the Chief State Solicitor be renamed as Chief State Attorney. B, the Deputy Solicitor General and Deputy Chief State Solicitor be renamed as Deputy Chief State Attorney. C, all other offices with the designation State Solicitor or State Counsel or similar designation be renamed State Attorney. D, the inclusion of Senior Children's Attorney and Children Attorney within that schedule. E, the removal of the offices of Controller, Deputy Controller of the Intellectual Property Offices. These offices, as well as the Office of Assistant Controller, will be inserted in Part 5 of the first schedule, as they are not part of the Civil Law Department. They were created by the Patents Act and are part of a separate office. Chambers management, Madam Speaker, very important part of this reorganization of the Civil Law Department. Consequent on the requirement for process and management improvement, provision is being made to strengthen the administrative structure of the Civil Law Department into a management system suitable to a law chambers. The Office of Chambers Manager does not currently exist as a public officer or otherwise. It is to be a new, senior, non-legal, non-public service office contractual position to enhance the management of the Department of Civil Law. The Judicial and Legal Service Act primarily provides for the establishment, structure, and administration of the judicial and legal service. Although it deals specifically with judicial and legal offices, it does recognize that non-legal support is required for the administration of the legal departments of the Ministry of Legal Affairs, including the Department of Civil Law. So it provides for an accounting department headed by, quote, a public officer to be designated the permanent secretary in the ministry. The permanent secretary is also responsible for areas and duties assigned by the Attorney General. With public sector management now far more complex and onerous, and with the need for specific management for the Department of Civil Law, Section 12 of the JLS Act, the Judicial and Legal Service Act, is being amended to provide for the role of a chambers management in the Department of Civil Law. The chambers manager will be a suitably qualified professional who will support the head of department, the Solicitor General, who remains the Solicitor General, in harmony with the ministry's strategy with general administration, including strategic management, manpower planning, staff management and development, records management, including digital records management and archiving, ICT development and implementation, and performance manager. The Chamber's manager will also assist the Solicitor General with financial management subject to the directives of the accounting officer. While the proposed office of Chamber's manager is not a legal office, it is an integral office for the administration of the ministry, specifically the management of the Civil Law Department of the ministry, and is being provided for in the Act. The Registrar General's Department, Madam Speaker. Section 12(2) of the Judicial and Legal Service Act, Chapter 601, provides for the Department of Civil Law to include a sub-department, that is to say, the Department of the Registrar General. It is proposed that Section 12 of the Judicial and Legal Service Act be amended, 1, to remove the Department of the Registrar General from within as a sub-department of the Civil Law Department, and 2, to provide for a Department of the Registrar General as a fourth legal department in addition to the Departments of Civil Law, Criminal Law, and Legislative Drafting that, together with the Department of Accounting, currently comprise the Ministry of Legal Affairs. The amendment to Section 12 will also provide for the Registrar General to be the head of department for the Department of the Registrar General. The bill amends the first schedule to the Judicial and Legal Service Act by removing from Part 1 of the first schedule the offices that relate to the functions of the Registrar General and putting those offices in a new Part 1A, which sets out the legal offices of the Department of the Registrar General. The current legal heads of the departments in the Ministry of Legal Affairs, that is to say the Solicitor General, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and the Chief Parliamentary Counsel, are defined in Section 2 of the Act as Chief Legal Officer. This bill, before this House today, amends Section 2 of the Judicial and Legal Service Act to include the Registrar General in the definition of Chief Legal Officer. And it provides for all Chief Legal and Judicial Officers to have like status and treatment as legal officers have at present, but without constitutional protection from alteration to their detriment. Existing legislation provides certain safeguards and constitutional protections for the office holders of various senior public offices, including the chief legal officers. This does not require constitutional amendment. These provisions relate to the manner in which these offices are appointed, the tenure of office, remuneration, and related matters. The Registrar General is therefore being given these safeguards without the need for constitutional amendment or protection. Consequential amendments, Madam Speaker. In addition to the proposed amendments with respect to 1, the fusion of the Department of Civil Law, the establishment of a separate department of the Registrar General, it is proposed that certain challenges to the effective operations of the Department of Civil Law and the Intellectual Property Office be addressed. Cognizance should be taken of the statutorily created posts of Senior Children's Attorney, which fall under the Solicitor General, and the statutorily created Intellectual Property Office. In particular, it is proposed A, the Children's Act should be amended to allow the functions of a children's attorney to be performed by more attorneys of the Department of Civil Law. Currently, Section 88 of the Children's Act provides for the functions to be performed by the substantive holders of the Office of Children's Attorney. It is proposed that in addition to the holders of that specific legal office, the functions of that office may also be performed by other legal offices and contract officers in the Department of Civil Law, and that will require a period of training. Additionally, as provided in other laws related to children and family matters, the Children's Act should expressly require that the persons who are appointed or assigned to perform the function of a children's attorney should possess relevant training and the temperament that is suitable for that role. B, the Patents Act. In Section 3 of the Patents Act should be amended to provide for officers other than the Controller, Deputy Controller, and Assistant Controller of the IPO to be either public officers or engaged on contract. This section should also clarify the procedure for the appointment of those officers. Currently, Madam Speaker, Section 3, subsection 3 of the Patents Act provides for the appointment of other officers of the IPO, and Section 5 provides for the appointment or designation of examiners as necessary. It is proposed that in like manner as provided by other legislation, provision should be made for persons to be engaged on contract to perform those functions in such a way as to provide for some element of contractual stability, specifically as these call for specialized training and expertise. Such contract of employment may be permitted for periods of up to 5 years at a time with the option for re-engagement. C. The Legal Profession Act is being amended to include the Registrar General among the chief legal officers. Madam Speaker, the restructuring of the Civil Law Department has been a work in progress at the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs since 2006, even before the $20 million debacle and the John Report. Critical research, legislative drafting, meetings with stakeholders, and I emphasize that, meetings with stakeholders, meetings with heads of department, and strategic planning has brought this need to fruition in the form of the Miscellaneous Provisions Bill now before this House. The proposed fusion of the offices of Solicitor General and the Chief Solicitor's Department, as well as the proposed independence of the Registrar General's Department, will have the positive effect of revitalizing the Civil Law Department and, by extension, the Ministry. The legislative plan proposed is intended to change the Civil Law Department into an efficient, well-organized civil law chambers. The crucial role that the Civil Law Department plays in the governance of this country must not be understated, and it is too important to not pay the attention it so greatly needs and has needed, as the reports of 2006 and 2008 demonstrate and have been activated by the Stanley John Report. I must thank and applaud the Acting Solicitor General, the Chief State Solicitor, the Director of Information Technology and their staff, as well as the Registrar General, the Controller of the Intellectual Property Office and his staff for their participation thus far in the exercise of fusing the civil law chambers. There have been, Madam Speaker, extensive, long and healthy discussions in person, virtually, in emails and messaging, airings of concerns and views and ideas, agreements and disagreements, strong views and not so strong views, all in discussion over the last several months as to the mechanisms to take the process towards creating an excellent and highly efficient civil law department for our country. It is recognized by the staff of all of these departments that this is merely the first step forward, and that a lot of hard work remains for them all in the development of processes and the systems of working, methods of assignment, teamwork, and extensive training. It is recognized by the staff of all of these departments that change is not easy and requires both some discomfort and hard work. Hard work which I have seen them display the intention to engage and to be part of a pivotally important process. Permit me, Madam Speaker, to thank them for being part of the solution and the process. I beg to move.
Honourable members, I shall